The film begins with the observation of solar flares bursting from the sun. To understand this phenomenon, American scientist Dr. Adrian travels to India to meet his friend, astrophysicist Satnam Surutani. They descend 11,000 feet using an old miner's elevator. At the bottom, they encounter extreme temperatures and focus on advanced equipment designed to assess the impact of the sun's solar flares on Earth. Satnam shows Adrian a water tank located 6,000 feet below, filled with boiling water. Scientists foresee these conditions causing a global cataclysm. As a result, Dr. Adrian quickly returns to America to alert Karl Anheuser, the head of the presidential administration, about the impending disaster. Disregarding etiquette, Adrian interrupts a charity event at a hotel to share his concerns. Initially dismissed by Anheuser, his report eventually convinces Anheuser of the seriousness of the situation, leading him to introduce Adrian to US President Thomas Wilson. Fast forward nearly a year, President Wilson discloses confidential information about an upcoming apocalypse to world leaders at the G8 summit. This revelation triggers the construction of large ark ships in the Tibetan Valley, designed to shelter a select group from the impending cataclysm. To accommodate the construction, local residents are relocated under the presence of a dam being built. In 2011, the grim reality was kept hidden from the public, while the wealthy secretly purchased ark tickets costing €1 million each. By 2012, on the eve of the global disaster, Jackson Curtis, a science fiction writer based in Los Angeles, remains oblivious to the looming catastrophe. He hurries to his ex-wife's place to take their children to Yellowstone Park for the weekend. Amidst this, a minor earthquake strikes the city, causing a crack in the pavement, but the public remains nonchalant. Jackson's excessive focus on his writing has distanced him from his children, who are growing closer to their mother's new partner. Jackson sees the trip to Yellowstone as an opportunity to reconnect with his children. Dr. Adrian and Anheuser meet the president to discuss the alarming geological conditions in California, suspecting that the Earth's core is heating faster than expected, which might necessitate an earlier evacuation. To gather more information, Adrian and a team of military personnel and researchers head to Yellowstone due to its high seismic activity. There, Jackson and his children are discovered near a dried-up lake and are escorted to a military base for safety. Adrian encounters Jackson and his children at the base, where he falsely claims to be on a routine geological expedition. Recognizing Jackson as a science fiction author, Adrian expresses admiration for his work. Afterwards, Jackson and the children return to their tent city, seemingly unaffected by the events. Meanwhile, Adrian contacts Indian astrophysicist Satnam, whose data suggests a global destabilization of the Earth's crust, indicating that immediate evacuation to the arks is necessary. Adrian assures Satnam that a plane will soon arrive for him and his family. Meanwhile, Jackson struggles to engage his bored children in the tent city. After the children go to bed, Jackson encounters a radio host named Charlie, who broadcasts apocalyptic predictions from his van. Charlie shares his conspiracy theory with Jackson, claiming that the government is concealing the truth about an impending catastrophe, and that only a chosen few will survive. He alleges that anyone who has discovered this secret operation has been eliminated by the authorities. Charlie even possesses a map indicating the ark's location. Despite Charlie's claims, Jackson remains skeptical and returns to his tent. The following day, as the earthquakes become more severe, Jackson's ex-wife, Kate, urgently asks him to bring their children home. Anheuser informs the US president that only 4 arks have been constructed, indicating that not everyone can be saved. Adrian reports the worsening situation to global leaders, prompting the US president to announce an immediate evacuation. Jackson, who works as a driver for Russian oligarch Yuri Karpov, hands his children over to his wife and rushes to work. Upon receiving an evacuation notice, Karpov instructs Jackson to quickly bring his twin sons to the airport. One of the boys inadvertently reveals their plan to survive the impending disaster on large ships, reminding Jackson of Charlie's apocalyptic predictions. Convinced of the impending catastrophe, Jackson rents a plane and hurries to collect his family. Initially, Kate is skeptical, but after another earthquake, she, along with Gordon and the children, hastily join Jackson. As they witness the destruction of Los Angeles, they narrowly manage to reach the airport, only to find that the pilot of their rented plane has died. Fortunately, Gordon has taken some flying lessons and is able to pilot the plane, which they manage to launch just in time. As cities including Los Angeles are engulfed by the sea, Jackson convinces his family that they need to head to Yellowstone to retrieve a map of the ark's location from Charlie. Upon landing at Yellowstone for refueling, Jackson rushes to find Charlie, who is not in his van but on a mountain, preparing for the apocalypse. Jackson asks Charlie for the map and quickly returns to the plane. Despite the chaos, Charlie refuses to evacuate and continues his broadcast against the backdrop of an erupting volcano. As Yellowstone descends into chaos, Jackson races back to the plane. With Gordon ready for takeoff, Jackson retrieves the map, exits the van, and leaps onto the departing plane at the last moment. In a miraculous escape, Gordon manages to fly the plane away from massive explosions. Jackson, after examining the map, reveals that the arks are located in China, and they need a larger plane to get there. As devastation unfolds worldwide, thousands of grief-stricken people gather in prayer. Witnessing this, Adrian finds it unacceptable to continue concealing the truth. However, Anheuser opposes revealing anything until the selected individuals are aboard the arks. He insists on the president's immediate evacuation, but the president retreats to a chapel, refusing to speak to anyone but Adrian. During their heartfelt conversation, President Wilson expresses his belief that he hasn't done enough to save people and decides to stay behind, sharing the fate of his people. Adrian boards the plane, reporting the president's decision to stay. Following this, Anheuser assumes command. A disagreement arises between Adrian and another man, with Adrian taken aback by the man's sternness and belief that sentimentality could hinder humanity's survival. Laura Wilson, the president's daughter, boards the plane, bidding a sorrowful farewell to her father, who has chosen to stay behind. President Wilson addresses the nation, which does not incite riots as Anheuser had anticipated. Gordon's plane lands at the Las Vegas airport, but all flights have been cancelled, leaving their route to China unclear. Jackson, aware that oligarch Karpov has ARK tickets, pleads with him to take his family along. Karpov's pilot, Sasha, finds a functional plane, but lacks a co-pilot. Jackson suggests Gordon for the role. They rush towards a large AN-500 aircraft carrying cars. Despite the controller's prohibition and a damaged runway, Sasha and Gordon manage to take off. Meanwhile, Nima, a Buddhist monk, receives a letter from his brother, who is involved in ark construction. Nima, a young monk, learns from his brother about a secret way to board the ark without tickets and is asked to bring their family to the base. Meanwhile, the White House is filled with people seeking refuge, including President Wilson, who helps a little girl find her father. The Prime Minister of Italy stays home, praying as an earthquake devastates the Vatican. Rapid continental shifts trigger global tsunamis, one of which engulfs Washington, claiming the lives of President Wilson and many others. On the AN-500, Jackson and Kate reconcile their past differences. Sasha informs them of the depleting fuel, indicating an imminent emergency landing. Due to the continental shift, their plane ends up in the Himalayas, close to their destination. The plane's engines fail over the Tibetan mountains, making landing impossible. Sasha instructs everyone to board one of the cars and exit through the rear cargo area of the low-flying plane. Everyone evacuates, leaving Sasha alone to heroically pilot the plane. The AN-500 teeters on the edge of an abyss before plummeting down, resulting in Sasha's death. Chinese cargo helicopters fly overhead, transporting animals to the arks. Spotting the group, one of the pilots descends. Karpov presents his and his son's boarding passes to the Chinese pilots, and they are taken aboard, leaving the rest stranded in the freezing mountains. The group stumbles upon a moving car in the mountains. Jackson frantically signals for it to stop. The driver, a Buddhist monk named Nima, picks them up and they head to the valley together. Concurrently, Nima's car arrives at the base gates. At the base, the ticket holders for the malfunctioning ark realize they've been abandoned. Led by Karpov, the distressed crowd rushes to the nearest operational ark, which Adrian happens to be on. Despite Anheuser's orders to close the ship's gates, Chinjin discreetly guides everyone inside the ship through a roundabout route. En route, they spot Karpov and his children unable to board the ark. Chaos ensues at the landing site next to the ark, with many people losing their grip and falling into the abyss. Adrian, unable to remain indifferent, appeals to the leaders of all countries to open the gate so those left on the platform can board the ship. Anheuser interrupts Adrian, pointing out that there are only 15 minutes left before the wave hits, and arguing that the safety of those already on the ship is paramount. However, Adrian persuades the politicians that a future built on such harshness is unacceptable. Eventually, they agree to open the gate. This decision, however, endangers Jason's group, who are still navigating the ship's interior. The gate's lifting mechanism propels Chinjin and Gordon onto large spinning gears. Chinjin severely injures his leg, but Jason manages to save him. Unfortunately, Gordon's grip slips, and he fails to hold on to Jackson. Gordon is tragically crushed by the gears, and a thick cable becomes entangled in the mechanism, causing the gate to jam and not fully open. Despite this, people rush into the ship with only 4 minutes remaining before the wave hits. Everyone is aboard, except for Karpov and his children. In the final moments, Karpov manages to throw his sons through the closing gate, but falls into the abyss beneath the ship. The same cable stuck in the gears prevents the gate from closing completely. Adrian spots Jason's children near the lifting mechanism, recognizes them, and assures Anheuser he will resolve the situation. Adrian and the workers rush to Jason's compartment. With 1 minute left before the wave hits, and the gate still half open, a massive wave approaches the arks, obliterating all life in its path. Water infiltrates the ship, and the security system seals off some compartments. The compartment housing Jackson's group is now flooded. The ark, having lost its supports and with its engine unable to start due to the open gates, is tossed about by massive waves, heading straight for Everest. A collision seems inevitable unless the engine can be started. Adrian, unable to reach Jackson, communicates with him through the intercompartment communication system, explaining the urgency of unlocking the lift mechanism. Despite understanding the risk of descending into the water-filled compartment, Jackson decides to act, with his son following quietly. Jackson instructs his son to light his path with a flashlight, while he works on removing the cable. With his son's help, he succeeds. The gate finally closes, allowing the engine to start. The ark, moving at a high speed up the mountain, seems unlikely to avoid a collision as massive boulders tumble down. However, in the nick of time, the ark reverses and evades the collision. Jackson emerges from the lift bay to a hero's welcome and reunites with his family. On the 27th day post-flood, as the water recedes, satellites capture images of the Earth's surface, revealing that the mountains in southern Africa are now the world's highest points. The arks, carrying survivors, head there. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.